Welcome to my channel. In this video, we will show you one of the most heinous crimes that occurred in South Korea, in which the 6-year-old child, TAEWON, was the victim. On May 20th, 1999, at approximately 11 a.m., the 6-year-old TAEWON left for an academy in Hyeomuk-donggu in Daegu. While he was walking in the alley, a man appeared in front of him and poured acid on him, and the perpetrator fled directly from the scene of the accident. The child, Tae, was able to leave the alley and sat near a pillar. He was screaming in intense pain. Burns were covering his body and his clothes were half melted. At that time, a woman ran towards him and a man helped him and took him immediately to the hospital. In the hospital, doctors confirmed that Tae had been subjected to a brutal acid attack. He had suffered third-degree burns on about 40% of his body, and because the acid had entered his eye, Tae was blinded, suffered burns to his esophagus and airway, and had a 5% chance of survival. Although the incident occurred during the day, there was only one witness, a friend of Tae, who saw a man from the same neighborhood entering the alley behind Tae directly before the accident, but the police at that time did not accept the testimony of Tae's friend due to the fact that he was a child with special needs. He is deaf and his memory may be weak. At that time, the police were unable to find the perpetrator due to the lack of surveillance cameras at the scene of the accident and the lack of any evidence. The police told the parents of the child, Tae, that the whole matter depends on their son's testimony only. After 5 days had passed, Tae regained consciousness, and his parents prepared a video camera to record their son's statements about the details of the day of the accident. At that time, the child, Tae, revealed the cruel way in which the perpetrator poured acid on him. According to Tae's statement, the perpetrator was carrying the acid in a black plastic bag and pulled his hair from behind and poured the acid into his mouth and face. The child, Tae, was so young that he did not even know what acid was and only knew that the liquid that was poured on him was hot water. When Tae's parents asked their son about the perpetrator, he told them without hesitation that it was Mr. Kim. He is the owner of a fried chicken restaurant in the same neighborhood. But what confused the police was that Mr. Kim was the same man who took Tae to the hospital after the accident. Because of Tae's statements, the only suspect in the case was Mr. Kim. His family asked the police to investigate him and collect evidence to convict him, but when the police investigated Mr. Kim, he completely denied the charges against him and told them that at the time of the accident he heard Tae screaming and went to help him only, as the police revealed. The clothes that Mr. Kim was wearing at the time of the accident did not match the clothes that Tae mentioned. The police revealed that it is true that they found acid on Mr. Kim's shoes and clothes. However, they did not take it as evidence since he was the person who transported the child, Tae, from the accident site and his clothes were contaminated with acid. In the end, the police decided to acquit Mr. Kim because there was not enough evidence to convict him. The police officer in charge of the investigation at that time said it is true that the child, Tae, mentioned Mr. Kim as a suspect, but he was only repeating his words. He also did not remember the first woman who found him. He also mentioned that the perpetrator was carrying acid in a bag, but the perpetrator cannot. He carried the acid inside a plastic bag without burning it. Perhaps he put the can inside the bag and the child, Tae, did not notice it at that time due to the shock he was exposed to. During the treatment period, Tae, in the hospital, his mother was recording his diaries, and on the morning of July 1st, 1999, after 49 days, the child, Tae, died from serious complications of organ damage due to sepsis. TAEWON's funeral was held amidst deep sadness, and in his interview with Tae's older brother, he said, "Please catch the person who hurt my little brother. My heart hurts so much." The Tae incident caused anger among the Korean people, who criticized the weak police investigation. Considering that the incident involving the child, Tae, was almost the only case in South Korea, more than 12 senior experts and investigators in Korea cooperated together and conducted an intensive analysis of the incident for about a month. which showed results completely different from the police investigation at that time. 1. The Korean police said that Tae's testimony was not credible because he was in a critical condition and was just a 6-year-old child who listened to his parents' statements. But for the experts, Tae's testimony was completely consistent with the circumstances at the time, and that he spoke voluntarily and not under duress, and his testimony is considered completely reliable. The important point is that the friend with whom Tae was playing immediately before the accident may have witnessed the situation in detail, but the police at that time ignored his testimony because he was a child and had special needs. Given that acid is dangerous, the police could have investigated the nearby companies that provided it with knowledge of the last people who purchased it, but they did not do so. At the time of the accident, the police searched the crime scene without equipment. Some experts also conducted an experiment of placing acid for 60 minutes in a black plastic bag and following it. They said that it is possible for the acid to move steadily in the plastic bag, like it would in a bottle, without the bag burning. The reason is that acid only reacts with things that contain oxygen, and it is certain that the perpetrator was someone who had experience with acid. After the police were unable to find any lead to find the perpetrator, they decided to stop the practical investigation in 2005, and at the end of 2013, the reinvestigation process began at the request of the child, Tae's family, and civil groups. Meanwhile, the 15-year statute of limitations for Tae's case approached. On July 4, 2014, 3 days before the statute of limitations expired, Tae's parents filed a lawsuit against Mr. Kim on the grounds that he was the strong suspect in the incident. However, the office of the Daegu public prosecutor declared the case filed by Tae's parents against Mr. Kim as not guilty. According to the revision of the Criminal Procedure Code of Korea in 2007, the statute of limitations on premeditated murder charges was increased from 15 years to 25 years. The new law did not include the case of child Tae. On July 7th, according to the Supreme Court's final decision, the statute of limitations for Tae's case had expired. Tae's parents and some civil groups raised a protest regarding abolishing the statute of limitations for murder. Accordingly, the so-called TAEWON law was proposed, which would eliminate the statute of limitations for some capital murders runs, but is currently pending in South Korea's Legislative and Judicial Committee. In the last phone call with the child's mother, TAEWON, she said that they had hoped that her son's case would be included in the decision of the TAEWON law, but it is unfortunate that the court destroyed their last hope, and there is no way to arrest the criminal. In the end, she said that she hopes that the TAEWON law will help victims of unjust and tragic crimes by abolishing the statute of limitations against them in order to achieve justice by applying the penalty of crime for some cruel crimes committed against humanity. In the end, the Tae case is considered one of the most famous unsolved cases in South Korea. It is very unfortunate that even if the perpetrator is alive and is arrested, he cannot be punished just because the statute of limitations in the Tae case has expired. But he must remember, the perpetrator is that an innocent 6-year-old child died from severe pain 49 days after his brutal act, and if he is not held accountable by the law, he will be held accountable by God's justice.
Thanks you for watching the video.